for you every week, Sue.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Talk of the Town. I guess this is my first show of the new year, and I have one word, or it's a sound really, burr. Yes, it is winter, and it is very cold in here in the studio because of all the equipment. So, I'm freezing here. But let's pay some respect to our show's underwriters. David and Kevin Gallerani, I love those two. Owners of Cape Auto Body and Service right here in Plymouth, Samoset and Sandwich Street, where service and quality are superb. One-stop painting with Jeff Cohen. We just gave Jeff a pair of beautiful brand new purple sneakers. The sneakers were given to Kenny by Russ Shirley. But, Kenny loved the sneakers, but not the color. And Jeff Cohen's favorite color is purple, so we gave them to him. Another great underwriter, Wrestling Brewster, Wrestling with Computers. Wrestling has a show right here on PAC TV. And if you have any computer issues, give Wrestling a call. He's really great at what he does. Okay, tonight is the first of a long line of great lineup of guests. And tonight's show promises to be very interesting. The guest we have on tonight, we've known for many years. He's wonderful. He does a lot of hard work and good work for Plymouth. Please welcome Selectman John Mahoney.
Karen, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're putting me into the leadoff spot?
Yes, I am.
Welcome back. Welcome back after such a long time away.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. Nobody wants to see me all the time, John. Anyway, I get tired of me too. But that's all right.
As long as your guest hosts are competent.
Yes, they are. Would you like to guest host sometime?
Absolutely.
I've asked you before.
I have. I've done it twice before for you. Did Nick Cafardo, the national baseball writer for the Boston Globe.
Oh, that was years ago. That's right.
2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, there was more than that, John.
I think it was after the 2013 World Series.
Yeah.
So that I bet that was November of 13.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think I did a show with Dinah O'Brien and Connie DeLego.
Oh, that's right.
That was probably early 14. And
How
I just
time
went
flies.
Saturday night. I just went to Dinah O'Brien's retirement party.
Oh, where'd
which
they
was
have
up at the library.
Oh, up at the library.
Yeah.
She was She is a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
She did a lot of hard work.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
So.
That's okay. You'll do it. You'll find somebody. Have you found somebody yet?
Well, we entrust that to Melissa to do that.
Oh, okay.
And we'll leave that up
Does
to her.
that have to pass by the selectmen?
Yes, that's a 14-day. Per the town charter, the Board of Selectmen has a veto power over hires and terminations of department heads.
How could I forget?
By a supermajority within a 14-day window.
That's right. That's right.
But recently, Melissa has been hiring in-house a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
Didn't somebody get a promotion on the 3rd floor and now she has to fill that? Anika?
So your human resources director just left.
Yeah.
And went to Florida.
That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
And I apologize because I'm not retaining her name right now.
It doesn't matter.
So long story short, Marie Brinkman is filling that role.
Oh, good.
And
good.
Jackie
is filling
went
her.
into Marie's role.
Okay.
And then Annika has gone on to the other side of the divider between the two booths up there on the 3rd floor. And now she is taking over for Jackie's role.
Yeah. And Tiffany.
And Tiffany is still hard charging up on the 3rd floor.
I love her. She could run the whole town, I'm telling you.
I wouldn't put that past her. Pretty solid performer.
Absolutely. I love her. John, how long you been a selectman?
I was fortunate enough to get elected in 2008.
And I think there was a question on the ballot. We don't like to talk about it too much, but at the time, Hollywood East was coming in, And 88% turnout?
If I remember correctly, there was two significant questions on the ballot that year, and the second one was there was kind of a, did the town want to go to a mayoral form of government?
Was that on there too?
That was on there too, and
How could I forget that?
it was kind of a watered down version, and that went down comfortably.
Yeah.
And then I know there was a litmus test on the Plymouth Rock Studios, and I think that got like 88% of the amount of people who voted. 88% said yes, we would support a.
Are you sure the question of that mayor thing was on there, that same? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, prior to that, there'd been a couple of committees put together where there had been already 2 ballot questions, and I forget the years. Do you want to go to a mayoral form of government? Those questions were the traditional mayoral form of government, where it's a strong mayor with like a 6-figure salary and a 4-year term, and a city council like Brockton and Boston.
Yeah.
And the first time it lost, I think 64 to 36%.
Yeah.
But under that proposal, because the losing side received at least 35% of the vote, they were allowed to bring that back to the ballot within 2 years. And they did that. And the second time around, the gap closed to 54 to 46.
Yeah.
And then that went by the wayside.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, I don't know if you were on that committee.
I was.
There was 9 people. There was a minority of 4.
Yeah, I was the only one on the conservative side that was elected.
And the third time, they put a proposal together. It said, keep an executive board of 5 members. We'll call the chair the mayor and give that individual $5,000 a year.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a watered down version.
Yeah, it's
I'm almost positive that was
I don't want to remember it, okay? I have erased it from my mind. But, John, to get back to you, what were your top priorities in 2015? I know, but I'm not sure everybody else does. This goes to a lot of towns too, John.
Well, I think the signature issue is and will always be, probably for the rest of our lifetime, is the plant.
Yep.
And, I tell people who I meet, if you look at our Congressman Bill Keating, and I think his district goes from Provincetown.
Yes.
I think he's up to Rockland, and maybe he goes over to Mattapoisett. But if you look at the congressional district, I think technically speaking, the number 1 issue is always the economy and jobs.
Yeah.
But in this area, the number 2 issue for him, it's the plant.
Yeah.
It's the plant.
Well, it hits home, John.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I know, economically, there's going to be a negative impact on us, but the surrounding communities are also negatively impacted by the president.
But I'll tell you, John, there were a lot of good people that worked at that plant.
Yep.
Every single one of them, highly professional, high earners that lived right here in Plymouth, and a lot of them still do.
And still do.
Yes. Children go to our schools. They were told that morning, John, the plant was closing. They were told that morning.
Who were the kids in school?
No, the plant workers, the employees.
Okay.
They were told that morning. Maybe they had hints of it, whatever, but they were told that morning. And they're all good people. I know a number of them.
Right.
But to get back to what's going to be left for us are the rods, John.
Right. So, obviously, an issue that I have been trying to digest for prior to myself getting onto the Board of Selectmen, in that you had a transcendent revenue stream here come out of this plant at 3% for inflation. When you convert all payments from 72 until now, you add them all up. You've taken in at least in the neighborhood of $1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
Way to go, John.
So what happens is you've got to analyze these decisions. You've got to perform an autopsy. You put them under a microscope and see what doesn't work. Right. And the fact of the matter is, the decision was made back in 1970-71 to take the entire contribution from the plant and put it into the general fund.
Into the vortex.
And that's the abyss.
Yeah.
And money doesn't come out of there unless you borrow against it. So now that money is costing you more when you borrow against it. So, I had an individual at Town Hall tell me the other day that Oklahoma City has a policy of taking X amount of all their new industrial and commercial growth and not allowing it to go into the general fund.
Right.
And they cull it off and put it into an infrastructure fund.
Oh, very good.
So you had probably this euphoric feeling in the community that there would be low property taxes in perpetuity, and the entire thing was an illusion. It just doesn't work that way. So I've looked at Wiscasset, Maine, Vernon, Vermont, Seabrook, New Hampshire, and Somerset, Massachusetts. Obviously, Wiscasset, Seabrook, New Hampshire, and Vernon all had a nuclear power plant, or Wiscasset doesn't anymore. And obviously, Vernon went offline in December of 14, and Seabrook is only licensed right now, I think, through 2026.
Oh, wow.
And then you have a coal burning plant in Somerset, but
No, they're not.
they're going off in May of 17, so they've got about 15, 16 months to go.
Ours is 2019.
Well, you're going to find that out in a few months, because the next refueling of the plant will be in 17. And if the plant can get a commitment from someone else to backfill their commitment into the New England ISO, the independent service operator that manages the 30,000 megawatts that supply the power of New England,
Okay.
if the plant can get somebody else to come in and say, you know what, Pilgrim,
We'll help you.
we'll pick you up for 18 and 19,
Yeah.
then in the next few months, they won't have to buy the fuel that they will need for the refueling in 17.
Okay, I'm trying to follow you.
So now, if they don't get anybody to backfill them for 18 and 19, they're going to have to go out and buy the fuel. You'll know that in a few months. And if they go out and buy the fuel, then you know they'll be online through 19.
John, it's a mess because actually nobody thought ahead. I didn't think ahead. Our leadership didn't think ahead. What do you do with the rods? They made a pact with the devil, and the Congress, they betrayed these cities and towns. In Europe, John, a private, and I'm not really, private companies and all that, but a private entity takes care of the fuel rods.
Right,
It's not left to the host towns.
right.
And, I don't know what they do with them. God, I hate to think about it, but...
I ran into a congressman from Massachusetts a few years ago. Not Bill.
Not one of ours.
Not Bill Delahunt,
Oh,
and
okay.
not Bill Keating.
Okay.
And I introduced myself, selectman in Plymouth, and I said, the power plant. And I said, what's the long-term solution for the spent fuel? And this congressman had no idea.
No.
He goes, John, I don't know what this, he goes, I have no idea what the solution is. All I can tell you is I don't want it to move. I just want it to stay there. I don't know what the solution is. He didn't want to pick it up and remove it from Plymouth and put it into a repository like Yakima and something like that. So
Because it has to cross state lines and they
yeah,
don't
because
want
of security concerns and things of that nature.
Oh,
so unless there is a parting of the Red Sea in D.C., which we would be foolish to believe that is going to happen,
Right.
you are going to have that stuff. And the stuff that sits into those dry cast storage containers that will sit there like those statues on Easter Island,
Yeah.
staring out at the Atlantic Ocean in perpetuity. Now one of the questions is, how safe is that? And why aren't we being compensated for that?
Well, that's the bingo question. The Revenue Idea Task Force went over that and we'll get to that. But you're right, John. I will say that Selectman Chair Tavares and Selectman David Malaguti were always concerned also. They spoke about it often, and they had a very conservative approach about it. But unless you have help from the federal level,
Right,
you're stuck with it.
right.
So now what do we do? And they're trying. They're really trying. Chair Tavares is on next week, and we'll discuss it. I'll listen to Ken, what he has to say.
All right, so if I hit a double tonight, he's going to have to hit a single to get me in, okay?
No, you and your baseball metaphors.
Financially aside, Karen, I can't emphasize this enough. The key to the whole thing is moving forward is you don't put all new growth into the general fund. It doesn't work.
It's not common sense, John.
It doesn't work. You would never treat that revenue stream the way you did back then.
Well, not with the knowledge you have today.
Right, and the key to the revenue streams is you have to identify it before it shows up and gets into the general fund. Because once it gets into the general fund, it's gone.
It's gone, I know that.
It's gone.
It's like our excise tax.
Great example. You beat me to the punch. Yeah, same thing.
You hear it often enough.
Yeah, so what has happened with your excise taxes? And the excise tax was designed to, for you to have the right to, your portion of picking up the responsibility of driving on roads. And the excise tax has become a de facto property tax. That's all it is. It's buried into the general fund.
And now they can't live without it. It's like blood.
Exactly. So now we have $135 million exposure for 400 miles of roads. And
make that clearer, because I was going to ask about the $135 that our good DPW said it would take to fix all the roads here in Plymouth.
$135 million.
What did I say?
$135.
$135. We wish. $135 million.
So, Selectman Malaguti announced last night that the Roads Advisory Committee had, in principle, supported the initiative to bond $135 million.
Oh, my God.
So, this falls into bad fiscal policy and the perception that if you cut back on quote-unquote spending, you will somehow save or cut back on costs. It doesn't do that. By no stretch of the imagination is an expenditure on roads a negative expenditure and would qualify as spending. The most basic service that you provide is our roads.
Right.
You might not have any children in the school system.
But
You might not need a firefighter tomorrow.
Yeah.
You might not need a police officer.
Yeah.
Now, if you stay home tomorrow and don't leave the house, you don't need a road. But eventually you're going to need a road.
It's like the transfer station.
So you're up to $135 million, give or take, on 400 miles of roads, give or take. And we're putting a zero next to that in the fiscal 17 budget. So I'm told it's $1 million a mile. So you're putting a zero next to it. You're not containing costs that way, Karen. So in fiscal year 18, if you do nothing, that 135 becomes 138 to 142. It just keeps growing.
So what do we do, John? Where's the money coming from? There's all these things.
So now there might be a proposal, and they're still working through this to put that on the ballot to test the temperature of the taxpayers to float $135 million.
They're going to set the ballot on fire, John.
Right.
They're going to go.
So what happens is I would prefer to identify revenue streams, because the thing that sets you aside. So as soon as that plant opened up in '72, you joined an exclusive club.
Yeah.
8 to 12 communities around New England landed a taxpayer of that magnitude.
And they thought the road was paved with gold.
Right. Somerset is going to fall off a cliff. Wiscasset fell off a cliff in '97. Vernon, Vermont fell off in '14. Somerset's coming off in next year in '17. They have nothing after that ends. The difference is Plymouth has something. And you still have billions of dollars in growth in the queue. The problem is the majority of it is residential growth.
This isn't right. What?
Should be under.
You know, John,
So you have to, what I'm saying is you have to identify some of these revenue streams, and I would prefer to identify some revenue streams and give it to the DPW director on an annual basis of $2.5 to $3.5 million. When these,
Yes.
and then tie that in with the state aid. And now, if you're giving him $4 to $5 million for roads, you can send him off to go do his job. Right now, he doesn't have a chance of succeeding, not whatsoever.
Okay.
Now, somebody calls me on the road and they say they want their road done. I can't get their road done because there's no money in the queue.
Right.
So now, if you do that, you're not paying interest on the bond for borrowing the money.
Yeah.
Every year, you're just paying the cash on that. And now if you're arguing over roads, all you're doing is arguing over which neighborhood gets done ahead of which neighborhood.
Do you think you can sell that, John? Somebody's going to have to sell the other idea.
That's not going to be easy. That's not going to be easy. So at least as right now, there is no certainty as far as roads. I mean, some of these roads in the community at the pace you're going won't get done for 50 to 75 years. At least if you dedicate a revenue stream to them, a resident can come up to you and say, when are you going to get to my road? And the DPW director can have a 40-year plan. There's a 40-year plan. And you're not limiting your borrowing budget over the course of that 15 to 20 years that you take this note out. And you're not adding a wasted cost onto the execution of the roads by. So now you have a roads tax excise, which has become a property tax just sitting there in the general fund. You're essentially creating, if you borrow that 135, you're creating a second tax for roads. And then on top of the second tax, there'll be a third smaller tax, will be the interest that you pay on the second tax.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. But I don't blame your DPW director or your town manager for bringing it forward because it's an act of desperation.
Yeah.
And this is another can that has been kicked down the road decade after decade after decade.
And I know that's what
and
David would say.
And it gets to the breaking point,
Yeah.
and now you're almost forced to do something that you shouldn't, that financially doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I hear David when he says that. I have a whole list here, but I want to get to the Symes.
Sure.
Of something very important, dear to my heart, and to a lot of people. And we made progress today, John.
I heard. How'd it go?
Yeah, it went very well. John Moody and I went up to see the town manager, and she was very receptive. She listened to us. We went back and forth, and a half an hour turned into 55 minutes, which I was very grateful for. And it was very energetic dialogue, but it was very good. And I have to thank John Moody publicly because he's superb, man, superb.
John's another pretty, in
Yeah,
the political realm, he's a pretty
solid
performer.
guy. He knows his figures. He knows his, and as does Bill Cohane, CPC.
Correct.
And so we made progress today, and I believe that house is going to come in even less than what was projected at town meeting. I do, because grants, you can't put in for grants until they're up for renewal.
Sure.
And so that's April, June. So I know those will come through. I have good faith on that.
All right.
And I want your support, John.
Yeah. Well, Symes House has my support. Let's
In what way?
let's not count our grants until we have
Yeah.
the grant in hand, or
I know.
somebody
Bill
calls you and
says the
you
same.
have confirmation that you have the
Yeah.
grant. We can't count our chickens until they hatch, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
So the Symes House. Not very productive on some of the communications that have gone on over the last 4 to 6 weeks, and the reason is when a lot of us meet individually with various factions, there's a lot lost in translation.
Right.
So I've been trying to get a meeting of, the project manager, the town manager, some of the members of the Board of Selectmen, and the stakeholders in Manomet, and have been unable to do that in the last month because town manager has been unavailable, out of town. You get into the holiday time, And then obviously there was a situation off of Route 3 with a sewer pipe, which you may or may not want to talk about tonight.
No, I have it down here.
And so we got away from that.
Yeah.
I know that Melissa has sent a communication out to the
Project manager.
project manager. And
Finnegan.
There's a meeting tomorrow night at 5:30, and
Yep.
I believe that from what I saw in the communication, I think we're all on the same page. And what is that?
What is that,
So what
John?
is that? So, two options. You have option A and option B.
Yeah.
Both of these options vary around this quote-unquote, how many bathrooms do you have to have on the first floor, and
Yeah.
intruding
In a
on
working kitchen,
in a working kitchen.
so we can be self-sustainable.
Correct.
And not to bastardize the house to such a degree, John, that, it loses its value.
Correct. So what we need to see is you need to put A and B on a piece of paper, and then go through the budgetary process so everybody
Yes.
can see that. Okay, what is A? And what have we cut out to get the number down? And then what is B? What are the costs associated with B? And how do you arrive at that number?
Well, I'll tell you that Randy Parker already took out close to $1 million, 700,000 or so,
Okay.
right off Plan B, and there's more to be done, and that has to be seen.
When you do that, you will make your building committee
Yes.
decision and job that much easier.
Easier. And that's what Bill was asking for,
Right.
but they weren't listening. Maybe I shouldn't say they weren't listening. No, they weren't listening, John. So now at least, I don't like to go up to Melissa's office, John. I do it rarely because I don't want to make a habit. I don't like to make a habit sitting here. I don't want people sick of me. It's easy. I get sick of me. I told you that before. So when I go up to Melissa's office, I'm serious.
Sure.
And she's very receptive.
Right.
And she asked all the right questions, and John was able to answer a lot of them for her. And the thinking process came in, and it was good. And it's going to be good for Plymouth.
Yeah, we want to make sure we do this right.
Yes.
And technically
With
speaking,
all the information, John, not just here it is, here's Plan A, completely chopped up to God knows what, and not functional. The town will end up having to pay for it. I don't want that. I want that house self-sustainable.
correct. I stepped into a home in Plymouth a month or so ago, and I stepped back into the 1600s.
Oh, I love that.
So this house here was built in 1863, and if this project is done correctly, there's no reason why it couldn't last the village of Manaman and the town another century or two.
Forever.
So
But,
there's a little bit of more work to do.
Yeah.
There's been some contention. It's been minimal. It was difficult, like I said, around the holidays to get everybody together, and then you did have a significant emergency
Yes.
that hit the community.
Yeah.
But we just want to make sure that we get it right the first time.
I just want people
And
to
another
listen.
baseball analogy.
Yeah.
Out of the box.
Out of the box, which
Okay.
I get, I understand, and that's all we want too. There's a lot vested in this, John.
Right, and I can tell you that I went to the first Charlie Brown Christmas tree lighting. I believe Charlie was still
Oh, I
alive back
remember.
then.
I saw you there.
And there was no electricity.
Yeah.
They had to run a cord to an adjacent property to get the 110 power over to have some lights on. There had to be easily 500 people.
Yeah.
They were pushing 500 people on that lawn that
Yeah,
night. And
right.
you really couldn't see anybody.
Well,
But it was a massive people.
It
so
was just so wonderful. And Mike Landers, everybody knows Mike Landers for everything, Project Arts and all that. He is very excited about it. It's going to bring another venue for South Plymouth.
Okay.
And I want that house self-sustained. I do not want to go back to the town. I don't want to do that. Neither do they.
Correct.
They don't want to do it. So, but okay, we'll put that. I feel much better. Let's talk about that failing of the pipe
dear God, John, there's never a good time.
No, there's not.
And then the boiler blew up at Town Hall.
Yes.
But let's talk about the pipe.
So I think the only thing positive that came out of this pipe thing, not that could there be anything positive, was the location. You were fortunate that it was, heading southbound. It was just off of Route 3. And it wasn't, as you know, there's 4.5 miles of pipe.
And it
Karen,
was put in shoddy, John.
that comes up from the waterfront and goes
Yeah.
over to the industrial park.
Not our DPW's fault, John.
And,
This was way before.
right.
Okay, sorry.
So you got lucky. It didn't, no town wells, no residential properties.
Thank God. But,
So with that respect, we did get lucky.
yeah.
Okay, but there
Yeah.
are obviously quality of life, safety concerns.
And if the north side goes, forget it.
Correct. So that's not going to be good either. So what we want to do is, we want to inspect the rest of the pipe as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Get a result in. See what else, other kind of mitigation we have to do so that we're not dealing with this similar situation in the middle of a residential neighborhood
Oh, no kidding.
over on the north end of town. And then, you let the dust settle, you do an analysis, and you're going to have to come up with a new long-term solution.
20 million, John.
And you want to make sure that it is over-engineered.
Mm-hmm.
The oversight of construction emphasizes quality of the construction, and you want to mitigate as much risk as possible.
It's got to be done.
So I'm guessing you're probably looking at another 4 to 8 weeks before your DPW director comes forward with
Yeah.
multiple options for the board
I talked to JB, yeah.
to vet.
Yeah. I know he can do it right. I know he can do it, his men can do it, whatever. But John, where are we going to get the money?
Well, this ties into the prior conversation on
Yeah.
borrowing money. So if we were able to cull out a few $1,000,000 each year and just dedicate that to roads, you're not having that $135 million conversation. So now
Right.
you're talking about borrowing $135, paying interest on that. And then, because nobody foresaw this, we have pipes in our ground right now that are a century old that are still functioning. Not that that's right, Karen.
I know, but David always talks about that. Any one of them can go at any time.
Exactly. And you would think that the 100-year-old pipe would go ahead of the 15-year-old pipe. But that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah. Will the state pick up anything, John? Because it's the jail, isn't it? Part of it, it's the jail.
We're a little early into this. This is going to get bad. This is
County
going to get
again? No?
No, I will. I can't blame them for everything.
Okay, too bad.
But a lot of, in the next week or two, I'm sure a lot is going to come out.
Come on, that's
Karen.
what JB said.
We live
so
in
we
a-
got to wait.
You got to wait.
Yeah.
Obviously, we live in a litigious society, and the board has to do what's best for the community as a whole, and we will do everything that we can.
I'm happy to hear that, John. I feel better. Thank you. Because that's the right thing. And, you got good people on that board.
Yes, we do.
You do.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to serve with nothing but good people since I was able to get there. Solid people up and down, good cross-section.
Yeah. Who's up? It's David and Tony, David Malaguti and Tony Provenzano?
I believe we changed the election day.
Yes.
I think we pushed that back a week. So you were just shy of 4 months away, I believe, from the town election.
Right.
And Tony and David are up this year.
Right. And I don't know anybody's running. Nobody's running. Did you hear of anybody?
I have not heard of it.
I'm sorry. I just saw you
But we just came out of the holidays, and we have been focused on the sewer pipes. So,
I know. I haven't heard of anybody. No.
You mentioned the '08 election, and I can't remember how many people voted that day, but it was probably in the 8,000 to 10,000 range. I do remember in 11 when I was able to get my second term, 5,600 people voted. In 12 it went down to 52. In 13 it went down to I think it went down to 46.
It was awful.
And then it went down to 42. And each year before we get into the election, I kind of, a meeting will end and we'll talk amongst each other. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it's sad and funny where you talk about what's the over-under.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to come out Saturday and vote?
Yeah.
And last year, I actually thought, could we go under the 4,000 range? But we didn't. So there was an uptick back up to 4,500 or 4,600 people. But I really can't
it's
explain it, Karen,
shameful.
but it is, it's kind of disappointing.
I used to say years ago, everybody's busy working. There is no excuse.
You can always take out an absentee ballot.
Absolutely.
And, the polls are open for 12 hours. So
I think we're closing a little bit earlier.
Well,
we
we don't-
used to close at 8.
I think it used to be 8 to 8. Now it's 7 to 7.
7 to 7, which I think is better. Now we're coming into a new town hall, but a lot of the meals tax pays for that.
Yes. So
I think we should up the meals tax.
I don't know if I'll go there. But what I can tell you is, Karen, is that the state gave you the option of enacting a 0.75% meals tax.
Right,
The state told you if you enact the tax, you can do whatever you want with it.
right.
If we were going to bury that revenue stream, that tax, into the general fund, I
Oh.
wanted nothing to do with it.
Me either.
Okay.
Yeah,
You took a revenue stream, you put it towards something you needed.
yeah.
Now, you can disagree. I have no problem. You say we don't need a new town hall. I'm okay with that.
And 2020, part of
Okay.
it goes to,
But what is indisputable is
yeah,
that is how you handle money responsibly in the private
the
sector.
revenue stream.
The revenue stream. You identified it. It didn't go into the general fund. You put it somewhere. You put it into an interest-bearing account where
Yes.
the money is generating interest for you.
Yes,
Lynn is as solid as it gets and has solid conservative credentials.
yeah.
This money is going to build, in theory, right now at her numbers, to $14 million in 2040 because we put a sunset clause in the meals tax of, I think, July 1st of 2040. So let's just say hypothetically the meals tax ends on July
And
1st of
she's
2040.
underestimating what it's...
Absolutely.
what
And it
it's-
won't.
It'll be much more than
They're going to
that.
keep it going.
Yeah.
But 24 years from now, they can have a conversation about what
Yeah,
to do with it.
I won't
So
be here.
let's just assume it comes offline.
Yeah,
Now that fund has been built up to $14 million, but enough money in that fund to pay the last 7 years on the town hall.
right.
So you're getting a investment in your historical downtown. This is a visionary investment in your downtown. At its peak of construction, you're going to put 60 to maybe 80 employees of the building trades to work. And then upon the completion of this,
Right.
you're going to be bringing more people through your downtown area, which is what you want.
That's oh my God, when we lost the courthouse.
You'll be able to divest yourself of the water
Yeah.
bond on Long Pond Road.
Yep.
You'll be able to divest yourself of the school building. They're out in the wilderness on the Carver
Oh,
on the
they're
Carver
coming
line.
to 11 Lincoln.
Yeah, I've heard nothing that tells me at this stage of the game that they've changed their mind if
No,
they want.
they haven't.
You'll be able to take those two buildings, sell those properties off,
Yes.
and put that money into the real estate fund and use that for something else coming forward. But
Right.
you have a Republican, governor now, and I can tell you that Charlie Baker and the Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito have
They
both,
love Plymouth.
and they love that town hall.
Yeah.
And they are both stunned because they've seen the depictions, the artist depictions of that proposal.
Yeah.
They're both stunned that we were leveraging that revenues
Yeah.
to deliver that.
But they visit here a lot, and number one, they love the Pine Hills. They love the town. They love the area. They like our selectmen very much. They're very open to all of you, and I'm thrilled about that.
Right.
I mean, you're getting more attention with this governor than you ever did with Deval.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
they're busy people.
But But I want to talk about, John, the Revenue Idea Task Force, because that's a revenue stream. How many ideas did we come forward with? 13 that didn't burden the taxpayer.
Okay, are you referencing that revenue stream there, the town hall? That revenue stream?
No.
Which one?
Whatever. You said
okay.
you
All right.
wanted a revenue stream earlier, and I want to get to the Revenue Idea Task Force, because you know, John, we came up with 13 great revenue ideas. You know, my medical marijuana went through. We're just waiting for parity through, from the state.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of those ideas that committee brought forward were solid. And there
Yeah.
are certainly definitive revenue streams that need to be
Absolutely.
maximized. And hypothetically, Karen, if even half of those come through,
Even
you
three.
potentially have a funding mechanism
Yes.
for your roads.
Yes.
And we're not having a $135 million discussion.
Or to fund all-day kindergarten. We could, you gear these monies to certain things, pay for everybody's dump sticker. I mean, I don't care what it is.
Right.
Just do it.
The key is identifying some of these revenue streams, not allowing them to go into the abyss of the general fund, and earmarking them for infrastructure, basic infrastructure needs that you need.
Yeah.
You have a situation in North Plymouth with Cottage Park. You're getting to the point where I think they're going to start pulling permits and going
Yes,
into the
thank
resident
God
development.
they were given the green light.
You've been given a $600,000 for the 40R.
Yeah.
You're on the verge of, as soon as they start developing their residential units, which is supposed to be 675 of them, you're going to get $3,000 per residential unit.
Yeah.
So now there's another $2.1 million. Mm-hmm. So that's 600 grand, and that 2.1, that needs to be invested somewhere, whether it's in North Plymouth, in Manomet Center, or Cedarville, or West Plymouth, or on your downtown waterfront. You take that money and you invest in infrastructure needs and pay cash for it instead of borrowing.
Why doesn't it happen, John? You're only, what? What?
It's, well, you've got to,
Have voices?
yeah, you've got to get that done. I quote Einstein all the time. It gets to the point where it's cliche, and I know it probably wasn't an original thought for Einstein, but his definition of insanity was conducting the same experiment over and over, expecting a different result. Okay, it doesn't work.
Beautiful statement.
It doesn't work.
No.
Okay, you've got to cull something out and dedicate it towards infrastructure.
Yeah.
And roads are a basic service. By no stretch of the imagination is that a waste of money.
No, I don't think it's a
and
waste.
the hypocrisy is you're collecting a roads tax. So I'm taking your money and I'm doing nothing with it.
Well, somebody is. Somebody is. But there's no law against taking it.
Oh, I know. It's not illegal. It's just there should be discipline.
It's a loophole.
It's discipline. Then you talk every now and then. You can hear a story on the federal level. The politician. We're missing some funds over here. We'll go to the Social Security Fund, and they'll raid that. Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm paying a Social Security tax, I'm okay with that. It stays in the Social Security bucket. Leave it there and leave it alone and figure something out. So there should be. I wish that we could bring some integrity to the excise tax and at least say, some of that money is being dedicated for roads instead of. I don't want to. I look at that as debt that you're putting on the next generation. And the debt is you've left them with no funding mechanism for roads.
Even if we went to the State House and asked for a bill for that to happen, they wouldn't let it happen. Because too many cities and towns need it for other things. I mean, they've gotten so used to it, they can't let that money go. In the meantime, $135 million for roads.
Well, let's go back to your Revenue Idea Task Force.
Yeah.
So if some of those things come to fruition,
Yep.
and let's just say a few of those come to be, and they add up to $3 million, then you have to have the board have a philosophical discussion about where do you want this $3 million to go? And I certainly will speak up and say, anywhere but the general fund. There's an opportunity here to put people to work and deliver the services that the taxpayers expect.
Yeah.
And right now, they're not getting that.
Well, I think so much is going on. Can it not be discussed now?
I think I would fully expect that. I think Melissa's going to bring some. I mean, she definitely wants some of these.
She does.
And the board absolutely wants some of these. And, you're just coming through the holidays.
Yeah.
You have just had a catastrophic event.
2 of them. How much was the boiler?
That's small potatoes compared to the
Oh,
pie.
I'm sure.
Okay. Now you're gearing up for Springtown meeting, but I'm sure that in between now and April, there'll be plenty of time to potentially vet out.
Talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about it.
Don't think for a moment
That it's been dropped.
any of this has been dropped. It hasn't.
Well, Tavares has too much integrity for that to happen. And I don't think he would ever allow that to happen.
Right.
I really don't.
Well, it would be irresponsible, and we're not doing our jobs if we didn't look at some of those revenue streams. That's what we were elected to do.
Yeah.
I didn't want you and John Moody and Christine Pratt to show up at our meeting, just look good on camera.
Oh, are you kidding me? I don't even want to be there.
Okay, all right. That was a joke.
No, I know, but you don't need me showing up, John, unless it's really important. I don't go.
Okay.
Because I'm doing other things for other people all the time, town-wide. And it's, to show up at a selectmen's meeting unless I have something intelligent, solid to say. Last night I went, I didn't speak. There was no need of it.
Right.
Selectmen know what they're doing.
Okay.
I have faith, and there's a lot going on. I mean, I'd like to see our police and fire get more personnel because we need it. This time of life in this world, it's very scary, John.
Yep. I want to make sure, I think the board is committed to this, is that, obviously you're familiar with what happened back in Manomet in '05 when there was I think you had rolling blackouts at your fire stations.
Oh, yeah.
There was a situation in Manomet that didn't end positively. So
No.
you have a board and a town manager and a fire chief that's committed to having 7 stations,
Yeah,
24 hours a day.
yeah. And that's a wonderful
Now-
service.
Chief Bradley was on the fringe of falling underneath that. And hopefully with the vote last night, we've given him the ability to, maintain that.
Yeah. You see, the services get left behind. There's just so much to do. And we're a big town. These other towns don't have our problems.
Right.
And zoning before was 3-acre zoning, pushed all our services out. That wasn't right, John, When you think about it, it just pushed everything far away, and you needed more. You needed more schools, more fire stations, more.
Obviously, the Pilgrims got off the boat in 1620. 350 years later, you were at 18,000 people, the 1970 census.
We came here in 75.
You woke up in 1980, you were doubled in size in a decade. So you duplicated in a decade what it took you 350 years to do the first time.
The first time.
And I can't find another community in New England that has ever done that. For good measure, you came back in the 80s and you added another 10,000 people. So what happened was from 73 to 98, you built 12 incremental schools and fire stations. And not only did you do that, but if you look at a map of Plymouth, you're 104 square miles. It wasn't by coincidence that top to bottom, you had 6 schools. So Hedge, Cold Spring, Nathaniel Morton, Mount Pleasant, Plymouth Carver High School, and Manomet Elementary, right?
Yeah.
In 1970. Those 6 schools are hugging the coast.
Yeah.
They're all hugging the coast, and I think at the time probably I'm
Everybody.
guessing as the crow flies, all of them were probably within a mile of the salt water. Okay?
Yeah, I believe so.
And I've talked to numerous people, people who I served on the board with. And they can tell me, you go out past Pilgrim Hill Road on 44 by the Walgreens, and there was nothing out there.
No.
There was nothing out there.
Woods, which is wonderful.
And you hear repeatedly.
I miss the woods.
I remember when there wasn't a road there, or I remember when that road was dirt. So this euphoric revenue stream that created this kind of like this Wild West mentality in the 70s it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And the perception was there was the plant was paying for this, and it wasn't, because it was in the general fund. And my critique is not that you didn't do all of these magical things with that revenue stream. My critique is that nothing was done, and you really haven't changed your behavior.
Well, see, well, okay, I hear you.
So the town hall, you've learned from that. Now, that town hall project is not win-win yet. It can be win-win, but it's not win-win yet. You've got to make sure that your owner's project manager, you get a quality construction job there. It's about quality construction job, and you have to maintain the building. And I know that's crazy. That's absolutely loopy, but you've got to maintain the building, okay? And then after that, I think that long term you potentially will still have parking issues over there, but there are options to rectify that. But I think you'll have that. So those are the three things. And why do you know that you have to do that? Because something happened in 1988 that shouldn't have happened. And that was the execution of the South High School project.
Oh,
And
Lord, that was awful.
there is a doctoral dissertation in there. There's a book that can be written about the execution of that project. There's a book that can be written about what the communities do with money, specifically transcendent revenue streams, Somerset, Seabrook, Vernon, Wiscasset, Maine, and Plymouth, Massachusetts, and there's about 5 to 6 others in there. It doesn't work.
It's heartbreaking.
And if you want a positive result, and if you want to stem the growth of taxes, you treat money the way you're treating that meals tax. And,
I agree.
If you're unwilling to do that, you don't expect anything positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether you're building a school, a new sewer line, or a tool shed, you're not cutting the budget. You got to get out of this mentality of doing everything on the cheap. Okay? You want it. It's quality, quality, quality. You're
Well, you
making
get
an
what you
investment.
pay for.
Exactly.
But it's tough, John. You know this. I mean, a lot of us are on fixed incomes, and I don't get a Social Security
I
check.
know.
I raise the kids.
Right.
I had jobs, I did certain things, but it's, but God's been good to us, and we live in a wonderful town. I want to stay here.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I know the selectmen are trying to look out for us. They've said it. They're fed up with a few things, and they're really trying, and they get it. Because it's serious times.
I know. It's always serious times. And
No, it's not always. This is serious times.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. all I can tell you is you want to contain cost at all time, Karen. The board came out this year, and it's unfortunate that since deregulation of the health industry in Massachusetts
Oh,
and
yeah.
across the country, I think what happened in 97, after 97, healthcare went up 150% in
I
this state
know.
over the course of a decade.
It's killing, Melissa, she talks about it all the time.
And I was stunned this year, even though we did get town employees to go over a 3-year period to go from an 80-20
they've been wonderful.
to go from an 80-20 split
Yeah.
in year 3 to go end up
Right.
75-25. I was still stunned that the line item for healthcare went from 31 million and change to 32 and change, and it only went up 1.59%. Now, you're not going to get that result every year, but
No.
if you could get something in that ballpark every year, my God, that's half the battle.
Yeah, and it's not the employee's fault.
Right.
It's just the way things are.
Yep.
They work, they live here, their kids go to school here, they pay taxes. You know, they're getting a paycheck for that. They should. And it's not their fault that health care is so damn expensive.
You just want to give them a fair and competitive package because you want to be able to compete with these other communities. And specifically in the DPW department, you're not doing that right now. Your DPW director got up last night and he said he's still chasing trying to fill 6
He
jobs in
can't
the highway
fill 'em.
department. Right.
Well, you know, they all had that problem. They would get their training in the fire department and then go to another town to get the money.
Sure.
It's not right, John. You know, we put all that investment in to police and fire, and then they leave to get better pay.
Right. Okay. Now, to that point,
Yeah,
and you mentioned that you're on a fixed income.
yes.
So, the problem is, where's that balance?
I don't know.
And so now you're on a fixed income. Now you're advocating for these employees, and they don't have a fair financial package. You're saying with respect to the surrounding communities, and some of
Yeah.
these quality people leave. They bolt us
I
for
know,
more
it's
money.
a dilemma. It's like, you know, Ken says, where do you...
That's the catch-22,
cut?
Karen.
It's a catch-22. How do we survive?
So you want to give them more money, but then you're on a fixed income, so
I know, it's very hard. It's very hard. I don't know how they do it. But I do know that taking the excise tax is not the way to go. Put it back into the roads.
yeah, but now you have to undo something, and how do you? So
Where's it going?
it goes into the general fund, and it's just lost there. So the easiest thing to do is to find new revenue streams,
Yes, we're back to that.
not one-time revenue streams.
Right.
Okay,
Perpetual.
a consistent revenue
Yeah.
stream that'll be there for several decades,
Right.
and just identify that in.
Do you
So
know how
let's
much
go back to the meals tax.
medical
Let's go back to the meals tax for a second. Okay?
Yeah.
You sponsored a home rule petition.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're legislating the discipline into the financial system.
Yes.
So that meals tax is going to pay cash for that town hall over the course of the 25 years.
Yeah.
So what happens is, if the entire Board of Selectmen goes away, in a few years from now, you have turnover on all 5 positions, a new board 3 years down the road cannot come in and say, you know what, we don't want to do that with that money.
They can't.
We're going to buy turkeys for everybody this year for Thanksgiving.
No. Yeah, they
You
can't do it.
And that's why, if you look at the community back in 94, 95, and I don't know who did this, but this was a visionary act. They did a home rule petition, and they give the Visitor Services Board 45 to
Oh, yeah.
55% of whatever the state gives us back on the hotel motel tax.
Oh,
Okay?
God, the music
So now
joint.
you're giving them a consistent revenue
Yeah.
stream, and they take that and invest that into the community.
John,
Is that it?
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Listen to me.
All right.
Listen, thank you.
Tell Kenny I said hi.
I will. Listen, see you tomorrow night, John.
Okay.
Big smiles.
Are we still on camera?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow night.
Yeah.
It's going to be productive, I'm sure.
Okay, all right. Next week, Selectman Chair Ken Tavares will be on. I'm looking forward to that, as he is. So I'll see you in 7. I think we're out now. You did.